Hey everybody, welcome back to the CSS portion of our index page. I realized in the last video that I did not show you what the page should look like. So this is kind of where you should be. We have our car dealership, all of our stuff here with no CSS. This is about what you should look like at this point in time. And it doesn't look like much because we indeed have some CSS that we need to add. And what we're going to do for this one is I'm going to actually give you in the description a couple of placeholder images. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace a couple of these images with actual image tag things. So we can go and we can see what this looks like a little bit better. So let's go ahead and make those changes a little bit. For our top portion, for our overlay and for our cover photo, we're actually going to do it a little bit different with a background image in CSS. For our second one, so that would actually be up on the top here. That's going to be in CSS. For our first image tag in row, actually for all the image tags in row, what you're going to do is you're going to just copy this code in for each one of your image tags. So car placeholder.png is something that I should have put in the description for you. If for some reason I forgot, please let me know so I can fix it. So for each one of our image tags for the SRC, go ahead and put this images/car placeholder.png. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to actually need to make sure that that file is in that particular folder. So in the assignment, you should see car placeholder and cover photo 1.png. Make sure that you copy both of those. And what you're going to do is you're going to put them in your car dealer images folder. Just as a double check, we have our index, our images folder. Inside of there, we have our two photos. As long as you do that, then you are good to go. And as long as you do that, when you go and you refresh this page, assuming you saved it, like I apparently, again, did not. Must be forgetful tonight. You should see the images pop up for our little car placeholder. It's a kind of dumb image, I know, I'm sorry. But what can you do? It's a good placeholder. You will replace that with something that is far, far more interesting and nice. All right, let's go ahead and get into the CSS. So for our CSS file, we actually have quite a lot that we're going to go through today. I'll try and go through it as quickly as I possibly can. So the first thing that we're going to need, as I get back to this in my file that I've already done for you, is inside of our header. So what we have is just two lines that you're going to kind of add here. Instead of a text align of center, what we're going to do is we're going to text align our header to the right, and we're going to increase our font size to 1.5 rems. So what that's going to do as we click over is going to take it from being in the center, and I just kind of put it on the right side. It's a little bit larger, figuring that that's where people are going to look for it. If you want to leave it in the center, you're welcome to do so. Just let me know that you did so I know you did it on purpose. All right, so for our nav, we're going to keep our background color and our color. And then we have a couple of sections like we always usually do for our nav UL and our nav LI. For our nav ULs, we're going to go ahead and do a list style type of none and take away the bullet points. And for our LIs, we're going to just display them as an inline element as opposed to in a column like normal. So for our LIA, what we're going to do is we're going to do some of the standard things where we're going to do our A tags as a inline block. We're going to make them white on the black background. We're going to put our padding to 2.5 VH and then 3 VW, relying on our view height for the height and our view width for the width. We're going to make them slightly larger in font, and we're going to take away the underline because nobody wants to see that. Now, additionally, we're going to put a little transition onto this. So for our transition, we are going to, for our padding, we're going to change to the new padding in half a second, 0.5 seconds. And we can actually put ease, although I think that is actually the default, as a matter of fact. So when we hover, what we're going to then do is we're going to change 3 elements. And I picked a terribly ugly color. When you pick your own colors, it'll be way better. You're going to change the background color to lemon chiffon, which is indeed a real color. It's a yellowish sort of color. We're going to change the text color to black so you can indeed see it. And then as opposed to having our padding be 2.5 VH and 3 VW, we're going to increase our padding to 4 VW so we get a little bit of a transition on that. Let's take a look and see where we're at for this particular one. So you see that we have that little kind of animation on the way in. Now, when you hover over something, what it does is it just gently increases in size. And for all these animations, what you want to do is you want to make them really small and really quick. So what it does is it just adds a little extra thing without making people wait, because that's annoying. All right, so let's go ahead and go on. Our footer, I have not changed anything. Our container, I have not changed anything. So for our cover photo, that is where we're going to be next. .cover-photo. So I changed 3 different things here. The background color actually is pretty senseless, but that's okay. So to make sure that this takes up the vast majority of our screen, we're going to make this 80 VH, which is 80% of the view height of the screen. We're going to change the margin to auto. That's honestly really for our little animation. And we're going to put the background color to light gray. So with those 3 properties, what you should have, as opposed to this little car dealership thing, you now have a much larger space for car dealership, because this is where we want our photo to go. So let's go ahead and continue. This next line is actually the next 3 lines, or 4 lines now, I guess, are going to be relating to our background image. So as a note for when you change this, you are going to make an image that is 3200 by 1800. And that is just a reminder for you when you can't remember, and when I can't remember what size the image is, now you know. So for this one, we are going to use a background image. And when you use the background image, you use this URL like this. And what we have to do is something that's a little different maybe than normal. Since right now we're in our CSS file, we have to go .. That means go up a directory level, which is back into our main directory, so we can then go into our images folder and get our cover photo 1.png. So once you have that, our gray background should go and now have an image in the background. But as you see, it looks like kind of hot garbage because it's definitely in the wrong spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to position this with our background our background position, as opposed to having it be the default. We're going to use our background position element and say that we want this to be in the center. And for our background size, we actually want this to cover all of the area, just to make sure that that works out the right way. So now, what you should have, when that changes, you should have something that looks more like that. And honestly, the majority of this is probably the resizing of the image with the moving it up to the center so you can see more of the actual image. And yes, by the way, I did steal this from the internet. This is a real car dealership in like Oklahoma or something. But this is for educational purposes. It's all good. So now we have a couple more lines. These are my favorite 2 lines. So the animation, whoa, hello. That was definitely a lot. Our animation dash name is going to be grow. And, I can spell. And our animation duration I put this for 1.5 seconds. So this is not going to do anything yet. What we have to do is we have to go back up to the top now and define this grow animation. So for our grow animation, back at the very top of our screen, we have to do this at keyframes. At keyframes, grow. So grow is the name of our animation, and from is going to define our starting information. So for our width, we're going to start with a width of 0 and a height of 0. And we're going to transition from that width and height of 0 to a width of 100% and our height of 80 VH, which we set already. Which we set already. So now, with our keyframes, with our grow animation defined, what we should get, as opposed to just starting with this, we get this animation where it starts in the center and grows outward, which I think is cool. So there you go. So that animation now is all set. So let's continue. Back down to under our cover photo here. What we are going to define next. And we are in the home stretch here. We are getting very, very close. We're going to define our dot overlay. So I'm going to just give you this one so you don't have to suffer through watching me type it. And this is standard overlay stuff right here. We're going to put our fairly opaque 60% black and then the width and height so it covers everything. And we're going to display this flex so we can put everything, our inner stuff into the center like we want it. So from this point, what we have is, as opposed to this really bright image, which is really hard to see text on, we now have this darker overlay on top of the text, or on top of the image rather. So your image is, or your text is going to be much more viewable when we change it to a darker or a lighter color, specifically white. So for our inner overlay, overlay-inner. We're going to change the color to white and text align to center. And for our overlay inner H1 and paragraph, we're going to change a couple of our different properties. We're going to change our H1 to be 3 rems and a padding of 1, so make it much larger with a little bit of space, and increase the font size of our paragraph as well. So with those particular lines, you should go from this to a much more legible title. And you can play with the sizes. I'm not sure that's big enough. So if you want to make it bigger, you're welcome to make it bigger. The last thing left is our link, our call to action button. So for our call to action button, there is quite a lot of CSS. A surprising amount of CSS, I would think. .cta-button. So we're going to go ahead and display our button as a block element, and we're going to say the maximum width that this can go is 350 pixels. This is a somewhat random, arbitrary number. You are welcome to change it if you don't like it. This will specify essentially how big the button is. So on our button, we also want a little bit of margin because we don't want it touching the other elements. 2 VH for a top and a bottom, and auto, so whenever we have this, we make sure that it is indeed centered like it should be. So the next couple here are pretty standard. So we have a padding. We added padding, border radius, color, and background color to, again, just improve the look. And then we have 3 more little style properties, really. And we're just going to make the font size slightly larger, align the text to center, because we definitely want that to happen, and take away the underline, because, again, nobody wants to see that. So that will take us from here. And now we have an actual button. But we have no hover code and no transition on this yet. So let's go ahead and add our last couple lines. For our call to action button, this last line of code is going to make us do our transition. When we transition the background color, it's going to go for half a second, and it is again going to ease. You're welcome to use some of the other properties and try them if you want. Again, it is up to you. This isn't the end of your page. So the last thing for call to action button we have to add is our hover. So we indeed are going to change our background color. And what I did is I used the same color, really. So dark red is 13900 for an RGB number. I changed the opacity so it's a little bit more opaque, if that's the right way to say it, as opposed to, again, changing it to something different. So when you hover, as opposed to making it kind of darker or bigger, it just kind of reduces the background so you can see through it a little bit more. If you don't like it, again, totally free to change it. It is up to you. So the last little bit here is our row setup. So for our dot row, this is going to be very similar to the stuff that we've done before. We're just going to make this our flex box setup. Our row is going to be the entire width of the page. And we're just going to use our flex and give it a minimum height of 30 VH, just so it's easier to see. For our row, we use that class, remember, of row-dark as well. So for row-dark, what I did is I just changed the background color to light gray, just so it's a contrasting color. This is something when you pick your color scheme that you should absolutely 100% change. So let's take a look and see where that takes us. Isn't it great to see our little animation all these times over and over again? So now we have definitely a little bit more to do yet. And kind of our row CSS isn't applying. Did I forget to save this? I did. Go me. All right. So you can see that our row, although our image is obnoxiously large, you can see our second row is indeed changing colors, so we're good. All right, let's go ahead and finish our row setup for, where'd it go? For our .media and .text inside of our row, I set the flex basis. So you saw without the flex basis, you saw kind of what was going on with the rows. And actually without the image tag being in control, really that was kind of the problem, is our image tag kind of took over. So with these lines for our media, for our text, and for our image, these three things should actually take our row setup and really put them in control a lot more. Because just controlling the size of the image goes quite a long way in making this way better. So you can kind of see where we're at now. So the last parts here, and only two more sections, are for our text, for our H2 and our paragraph. You can see that those didn't look quite right yet. So for our text H2 and our text paragraph, we have our last little bit of CSS that will go, and I'll take our page from this, where I think they're far too small, to something that's a little bit more spread out and just a little bit larger, a little more legible. Again, you're free to change this. And again, you're going to have to create some cool paragraphs that will make things look a little bit better, because with no real text underneath there, this find location, our call to action button, doesn't look very good. All right, so that's where we're at. We have lots of CSS. We have our hover for our nav. We have our animation. We have our call to action, overlay, our row setup. My goodness, there are lots of things in this video. So that's all I got for you on this one. This one is quite a long video. I'm very sorry for that. But that's it for now. The next one, we'll be talking about uploading your files to GitHub.